This is 10-year-old Zackery White.
One of the pigs is a runt. It's very small and weak, and it will never amount to anything.
He's reading from Charlotte's Web. He reads just like any other fifth grader. Now, it took years for Zach to get here.
Shriked fern. What? This doesn't make sense. Okay.
And he's still working on it, says his mother, Elizabeth White.
Right now, he's up to grade level reading. So he's been through a few years of dyslexia tutoring.
Kelly Sandman Hurley runs the Dyslexia Training Institute at the University of San Diego.
Dyslexia is a phonological processing disorder, so it affects a student's ability to decode and encode, and it affects their fluency rate, it affects their spelling, and it just makes reading more difficult.
Sandman Hurley says dyslexic brains are wired uniquely. Experts at Yale, Harvard, and here in San Diego say dyslexia affects 1 in 5 of us at varying levels of intensity. For dyslexic children, learning to read can be torturous.
Known, run along, now run along.
Zachary's mom, Elizabeth White, knew something was wrong when her son started kindergarten, but she didn't know what.
Not until my dad mentioned a year later, so we're into first grade at this point, that he is dyslexic.
White immediately requested her son be tested, but she learned San Diego Unified doesn't test for dyslexia. Michelle Creasy is the Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator for San Diego Unified. She says the assessments San Diego schools give do not identify dyslexic students.
Well, these assessments wouldn't point to maybe my child's dyslexic. The tests would say, would let a parent, teacher, and educators and educators who support the general education teachers and students know where the student is in relation to other students.
White became frustrated and went to the private market. She spent $800 getting her son tested. San Diego Unified will intervene if a parent pays for a private dyslexia assessment, but White says her son's school offered him help designed for autistic children.
So there's no differentiating between my son being dyslexic and other kids being autistic.
Sandman Hurley says that's not a surprise. Teachers rarely have any training in dyslexia.
So you can have a teacher go all the way through the master's level of teaching, get a master's degree in reading specialist, get a reading specialist degree, get a special education degree, and they still never had one class in dyslexia.
Creasy says sometimes the dyslexia diagnosis isn't enough for a student to be classified as learning disabled.
So having dyslexia would only be one part of qualifying for a learning disability.
What's the whole part?
You'd have to have that 1.5 standard deviation difference between your intellectual ability and your performance.
In other words, San Diego Unified wants to see evidence of a student falling a grade and a half behind. In legal circles, it's called a discrepancy model. Margaret Dalton is the supervising attorney at the University of San Diego's Education and Disability Law Clinic. She says if San Diego Unified is following that rule, then they are a decade behind the law.
And until 2004, which I think is 10 years ago now, that was pretty much what ruled specific learning disability. You had to show that discrepancy. But that's no longer the case. The law changed 10 years ago.
One problem with the discrepancy model is it's not possible for a student to fall behind in kindergarten. The earliest it can happen is second grade, and by then valuable time has been lost. Sandman Hurley says waiting to test a student showing signs of learning disabilities can have long-term consequences for the student.
Yeah, when their child isn't progressing and they know their child's smart and they know their child's trying, and they went to the teacher in first grade and they said, oh, they'll outgrow it. And they went to the teacher in second grade and said, oh, no, he's fine. And all of a sudden they're in third grade and you can't read.
And you have to make those tough calls sometimes.
Zachary's mom decided not to wait for the school district to help her youngest son.
Like with my kindergartner now, do I wait for him to get behind and stop tutoring him so I can prove that this is what's going on? Or do I pay out of pocket and have the school never assist him?
White has started her youngest in private tutoring. She's facing the same fight all over again. Matt Bowler, KPBS News. Est-ce que tu parlais français, quoi?